Hi, I'm Pablo director of the International Film Series, and we have got an offering on the International Film Series website. We have a documentary that is called Up From the Streets, New Orleans, the City of Music. It's directed by Michael Murphy. This informative documentary is narrated throughout by jazz trumpeter Terence Blanchard, who carries the torch lit by Louis Armstrong. And jumping in on this review of Up From the Streets is Anastasia Matthews, who is a film student here at CU, attending the Department of Cinema Studies and Moving Image Arts. Anastasia is also a staff member of the International Film Series, and we were recently talking about music. And given the gloom and doom that's out there these days, I think it's more important than ever to remember that music can save us in so many ways. And Up From the Streets definitely conveys how and why this is the case. I will also just mention, through the power of the backgrounds, I wanted to share with Anastasia my record collection, and which record I've actually pulled out some of those records that you see on the top. These are all musical acts that are featured in this documentary. And so, I mean, and the number of musicians that talk and play is really quite astounding. But the records that you'll see there in the background are Sweet Emma and the Preservation Hall Jazz Band, Professor Longhair, the Neville Brothers, the Wild Magnolias, Dr. John, Louis Armstrong, of course. So all of these and many, many other musicians get mentioned throughout the documentary. And I'm curious, just Anastasia, what did you think of the doc?
I loved it. I've seen a couple of documentaries about New Orleans and the music there, but I think this was definitely the most affectionate one, and it had it covered so much information, but it never felt dull at any point. It just had this strong energy that carried throughout that I thought was great. And then also, I loved how it broke down how the music functioned, not only technically, but also culturally, where different parts of the music came from. So it made it really accessible to people that don't necessarily know how music is composed or different things like that. It just felt very relatable and accessible.
Now, have you ever been to New Orleans?
I have not. I would love to go, but
yeah, it's I've been pre-Katrina and post-Katrina, and it's one of my it's one of my favorite cities in the world. Yeah, the doc has a nice way of breaking things down into different chunks. I think if I recall correctly, it starts off with music as a spiritual force, and talking about they're just the cradle of jazz and the oldest African American churches, and of course the heritage of slave labor and how that played a role. I think then it kind of jumps from there to then it's like Congo Square, which was where the slaves congregated to dance and drum. And there were things in there that I didn't realize about how music had a chance to evolve or form, thanks to the fact that in New Orleans on Sundays, the slaves would have 5 hours to actually have to themselves, and the music is what just kept them, kept them alive during those oppressive, horrible times. Right. So were there any specific musical acts in the documentary that resonated with you, or what are some of the other things that came to the fore as you watched?
I loved how the musical acts were sprinkled throughout. One thing that I didn't know that I really appreciated learning from this too was the history behind Blackbird.
Oh yeah,
and that was a nice performance too.
Yeah, we should mention that some of the very high-profile musicians that come into the doc. There's Robert Plant talking about how he and Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones made New Orleans a place where they would always perform so that they could meet with musicians that had influenced their musical style. And there was also Sting, and then there was Keith Richards, and it kind of just goes on and on. And they all have different angles to report on. But if if you love jazz, if you love the blues, well, that's the other thing about the music that they're covering. They cover just like how many different influences make. I mean, New Orleans was just such a melting pot. I mean, you had the French influence, the Spanish influence, the African, Cuban, Native American influences. There was that one moment where somebody's talking and they're mentioning how, you know, you have a brass band going down and they just switch from one style to another style, like block by block by block by block. There's just a real joy to watch. And if you've been to New Orleans, if you love New Orleans, I think you would definitely like this movie. If you enjoyed the Buena Vista Social Club, you would definitely dig this film. And I don't know, any other things that come to mind for you, Anastasia?
I think you covered a lot of great points. Just the sense of community, I think, is a really important takeaway from this film, especially right now with the circumstances. It's really great to see how people can come together and have that sort of connection, and just how it carries throughout. It's great.
Do you remember what they said about, I like that little clarification about soul, when it's like soul with a lowercase s versus soul with a capital S. Mm-hmm. And Otis Redding is like lowercase s. And then, but with a capital S, you get the spirit, you get this real soul, you get the sanctified voice of people who've been in churches who are bringing that faith and the spirituals and the gospel and the hymns, and they bring that with them. And there's also a little sideline in there where they talk about music and as as something that helps activism in terms of giving hope to other people. And I think it was Mahalia Jackson, who was asked by MLK to sing in 1963 was it 250,000 people, and just how important that music was to bringing civil action to the fore. And then, of course, you've got the whole thing about how blues is one person said it's our folk music. It comes because it comes from church music. It comes from Eastern music and call and response type music. Just there is so many fascinating dimensions that make you appreciate how important music is. And right now, I just can't think. I mean, in fact, the reason I thought of you is because you were saying, well, was it or you who's practicing guitar or somebody else?
Yeah, my brother-in-law and I are trying this summer to.
As am I. Anyway, and it's meditative, and it's something that it brings so much pleasure and really just so much joy. And this is the kind of title that we normally would have been so just happy to share with film students and the community at large, because I think people would just love it so much. And the thing is, while we can't screen it on our big screen over in Munzinger, where we have 400 seats and we have a lot of space, and it actually feels more like a concert, I think, when you see it there. However, people should know that this is like just educational, informative, fun, and family-friendly kind of a documentary. And when you watch it through the International Film Series website, the distributor is going to be kind enough to split the gate with us. So if you go to internationalfilmseries.com, please do check out Up From the Streets, which is available as of Friday. And any parting thoughts from there?
I would strongly recommend it. It's a great movie for the time, and I could definitely picture seeing it on Munzinger, and it's too bad that we can't, but it's great that there's still this opportunity to support IFS and also get exposed to these kind of movies right now.
Yeah. And I might, Anastasia, might be asking you to help me out with some other movie reviews, if you don't mind. So,
Right.
Are you going to be around?
Absolutely.
Great. So nice to talk with you. And we'll see when we can do this again, and hopefully it'll be sooner than later. And we'll talk then.
All right. Thanks, Pablo.
All right. Thanks, Anastasia.